Welcome, everyone, uh, to the Hugh Smiley podcast. And this is the very first interview that we're bringing to you. And I'm really excited to have my friend and colleague here, not in the studio, but in the Zoom room, uh, to share with you some wonderful ideas and inspirations. And this is Bettina Clark from the Taunus Mountains of Germany, outside of Frankfurt. And I've known Bettina for at least 8 years, and we have worked together on a wonderful project called the New Andalus Center for Authentic Dialogue. And Bettina has a long journey of being a lifelong student and increasingly a teacher through her coaching practice, and has actually had very successful coaching experiences with over 500 clients from around the world. And Bettina also has been involved in a very widely spread organization called Family Constellations, I believe. And really, Bettina, you're one of the most brilliant people I know because you you combine a steel trap mind, a really wonderful intellect, and which is very awake and alive all the time, but also a lot of heart and empathy and spirituality. So it's really wonderful to find these two qualities in the same human being, the same package. And so I'm sure that you have lots to offer us today, and I'm going to be mostly the interviewer, even though there is something we're going to mention that we're involved with together, a project. And if you would be so kind as to answer a few questions, but please say hello and just share whatever you'd like to with our audience.
Well, Hugh, it is a pleasure to be here with you. And now that I know that it is your first interview in your new series, this makes me even more honored. Um, the wonderful thing to be with you is, and we had a little time alone before you started recording, is that even when I look at you, you always remind me how important it is to be mindful, to be in the present. And while you were talking, I was really noticing and I was observing what's going on with me. And I could feel that my cheeks were getting hot when you were acknowledging me the way you did, because I'm not used to this. I mean, we coaches, we help other people, and who is out there who ever says anything to or about us? So that was very warm. There was a warm and fuzzy feeling that I really want to give back to you. And I'm really looking forward to see what's happening, because interviews are not about answering any questions, I think. I think your kind of interview will be more dialogue and an exploration, because that's how you and I work. And we both are Hakomi practitioners. You are actually a teacher. I have learned the method and then some. And it's always about checking in. Now, how do I feel now that I say what I say to you? And I feel very close to you. I feel that my heart is connecting, and a little excitement, something curiosity, what's going to happen? Oh my God. Uh, and thank you for having me. So let's start.
Yeah, that's the way we roll. Mindfulness, and it's so delightful that you were able to share that and first experience that coming to life in a way, the warmness in the cheeks, which is an indicator that something's happening. The energy is moving, movement is life, circulation. And if we can continually be really in the way that you just expressed here for one another and provide a safe and loving container within which whomever we're with can come more to life, more into their true self. And then that could be a mutually, reciprocal process. It's the image I get is a garden with many flowers, diverse colors and shapes and species of insects and bees and dragonflies, and a little pond perhaps, and bushes, and they're all part of an ecosystem, and all of the different members of that family are enhancing each other and actually helping each other out in so many ways, physically and energetically. And here we are on Gaia, and we might even see the whole human race like that garden. Each one contributes a function or a role or has a gift. So I'd like to start with a couple of questions just to prime the pump, as we say in Hakomi. Oh, and by the way, the Hakomi method developed by Ron Kurtz. This is how we met,
Yeah,
indirectly
correct.
through Hakomi, yeah. And Bettina uh, studied Hakomi in the States, I believe. You
Yeah,
went,
actually, with the people from Boulder, I was happy to be
right?
with people from Boulder, from the main source. I
Yes,
did not meet Ron Courts. I think he was, I'm not sure, but I want to tell you quickly because it's an interview and an exploration.
right.
So interesting. I was living in South Africa before moving to the States, and I love to go to bookstores and, of course, self-help books, anything to explore. Anybody who has said something about something, please help me. The book from Ron Kurtz, and now I forgot what the name was. I think it was simply a Hakomi. I don't remember right now because it just occurs to me.
Yes.
Um, was one of the books I found in one of the bookstores, and I knew I had to buy this book.
Mm.
And I knew I had to read this book, and I read it in, I don't know, in a very short time. And it was like, this is my world. I didn't know where to find this world in South Africa. And when we moved to Princeton, by chance, I was part of a yoga center. And in this yoga center, they offered the training. Talking about synchronicity. And I had my book and I said, here I am. And they took me.
That's wonderful. Well, I think our stories are similar because I was in South America, and I was helping a counselor with a couple who were in the process of separating, and I was left behind in an apartment which was full of books. It was like a bookstore, and it was dark. Even though it was the afternoon, the curtains were closed, and I was walking between the aisles of these books, and a book fell. It was loose on one of the shelves, and I grabbed it so it didn't fall over. And it was The Body Reveals by Ron Kurtz and Hector Prestera. And similarly, I read it in about 3 hours and just
Yeah.
gobbled it up. And
Yeah.
then a couple of years later, on my way back from South America to Canada, I met Ron Kurtz in Florida. The rest is history. But, so we met through Hakomi, and uh, I have a couple of questions that I just like to get started. We call it priming the pump, just getting the motor started. And I'm sure our dialogue, as you suggest, will be versatile and flexible, and we might go in different directions. And we'll be here for about another half hour, just so people can know more or less if they want to continue watching. It won't be that long, so it could be a good listen in one sit. So I encourage you to also press the subscribe button so you can get notifications of future interviews. And if you're feeling a generous spirit, you could even click on like. So it sort of helps the channel build a little bit of, I don't know, esteem, I guess, with YouTube. I'm not quite sure how it works yet. But so the first general question, which I might ask future guests as well, but it's a question that I could spend a couple of hours meditating on myself. And it's this: Bettina, what would you say are the major influences on your path of becoming your true or authentic self?
There were several. And one very, 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 very important train ride when I was about 17, 18 years old from Basel to Cologne. What I typically do is at the time, I go to the restaurant and see where's a table. Is there anybody who I'm interested in? And I just sit there. Young people are totally different. And maybe I think I would be like this even today. And there was this elderly gentleman, white hair, and the sun was shining, and the space around him was wonderful. And I sort of went to him. He was sitting in the corner, and I said, "Do you mind if I sit at the table with you?" And we had a 5 to 6 hour conversation in the restaurant with little breaks in between. I was fascinated. I was ported into a different world. Uh, and after this 5 hours train ride, this gentleman left one station before me in Bonn, and he gave me a book. And I have it actually here. This book is one of two books I never want to live without. It's called Zen and Us, and his name is Karlfried Graf Dürkheim. He's a very colorful person, but he is a Zen teacher. He was a Zen teacher. He died in 88. And there's still an institute here in Germany, and they do a lot of work. And everything he says, the way he thinks, even my interest in archery. He lived in Japan. You name it, whatever I was reading is like he has lived already my life that I want to live, and this opened my mind. It was the biggest aha. It was an epiphany. It was like elevation. Had no idea who he was, of course. I mean, I got this book, and this book was lying around. And then it took years and years and years later. And of course, there were other steps in between. But then there were some very important steps. And one is when I was 40, I had a little child, and my whole career path was basically interrupted in being somebody I didn't plan to be, a mother. I love being a mother, but I felt alone. It was awful. I had a depression. And in this phase, I met a yoga teacher, Sanjeev Banu, in Switzerland. He lived in Switzerland at the time. And with his teaching, I learned just in the experiencing of my body that there is so much more to life than what we think there is, than the obvious. Just yoga positions, I mean, and breathing exercises, and whatever he was teaching about the philosophy, very authentically, very humble person, wonderful person, still active, big school. I must say he because of him or his way of teaching, I again was reminded, wait a minute, there's far more to life. And then I don't know how much I can say because I can tell you another 10 steps, but perhaps one more is I was on a trainer path for the More to Life Foundation, which is, I think it was called Kairos at the time. And this was really, I was diving into finding out myself, because after I learned yoga, again, we moved away from Switzerland to South Africa. There was nobody there who did that kind of yoga. And I found this group, and they were doing this self-help, very, very professional. And I did weekends there and basically really diving into it. Wait a minute, I'm not who I think I am. And this, who the hell am I? I'm sorry for the word, but there was this urgency. It is not, I didn't really know who I was. And this is a very weird feeling. And thank God I could get out of my depression in discovering, wait a minute, there's so much more. And the more is not quantity, the more is actually quality. The more is when I'm actually present to whatever wants to show up, I'm enriched, not because of the content, it's because of the quality of the presence. And I learned that in these many years and many, many more. And to make a point, I then turned life around and I said, I want to become a teacher. So I learned Polynesian shamanic work. I learned Hakomi. I learned, there are so many things I looked into. And here I am.
Wonderful. Thanks for taking us along. I felt like I was in your back pocket almost, or your backpack.
Good.
Yeah, it's really a gift. Everybody has a different approach, and but sometimes we do meet remarkable people. I think one of Gurdjieff's book was called Meetings with Remarkable Men. When we have that chance to meet somebody that's really special, at least special for us, and that they have a key to a door which perhaps has been locked, waiting to be opened for for our discovery and evolution. So this whole
Yeah,
process.
I would love to mention one more person.
We,
She's
okay.
very important to my heart.
Yeah.
And I hardly ever have a chance to really talk about her. Her name is
Mm.
Bronwyn Lankers. Bronwyn Lankers was one of the first people I met in South Africa. Bronwyn Lankers now is living in the campus of Moji in Portugal, and she's serving there. She was Buddhist at the time, and we did quite a few projects together in the townships and so on. But she introduced me to John O'Donoghue
Oh, yes.
and the book Anamkara. That is the second book I would like to take with me when I have to choose. These two books are my books. Because again, John O'Donoghue, a philosopher, a religious teacher, Irish, writes in a way so dense and so beautiful. Even if you listen to his voice, there's lots in YouTube. Oh, I just close my eyes and I listen to his voice and I go, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So these are very, very strong connections.
Mm.
And you are too.
Yeah, I love Donahue. The sound of his voice and the way he speaks English with the Irish accent and the lilt to the intonation. It's music, really.
It
It's
is.
it really takes you. It helps you to visualize, and it helps your own intuition to develop as he tells those stories. Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. So this awakening and these turning points on the path really center around our evolution, our inner being, perhaps. On the outer level, of course, we get married, we have children, we work at this, we work at that, we're healthy, we're ill, and et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, there's a kind of there are different words for it: the soul, the higher being, the inner essence, the inner sage, it's sometimes called, um, the presence that we have. It's evolving with experiences. And so that first question, thank you for answering so beautifully. And the next one is sort of similar. It's like it carries on that exploration of the spiritual path, you might say, or the path of becoming. Um, and you started to address it a little bit. That idea of when it becomes so uncomfortable not being our self, our true self, then that sort of propels us to search for something, and it can be very difficult. It can be frustrating. There can be grief and so on. But it's so. What if you have a modus operandi, a method, or an approach to knowing? There's another gerund to like becoming, knowing your purpose. What are you here for? Where are you going? And can you identify that or just speak about it in some words that might be helpful for us?
A very, very important question. This is one of the key questions I also ask my clients, because with the having answered that question, a lot of next steps are almost I don't know English word right now, but natural or organic maybe is a good word.
Natürlich.
Natürlich, genau.
Natürlich.
For a long time, I was really asking myself, what am I here for? Everybody asks this question somehow, why am I here? And so on. And I came up with most complicated things and I don't know what. And then at some point, I sort of regulated myself and I said, just look at what is. Even when I was a little girl, sitting next to people in the grass who were on our neighbor's property in a hotel, who were taking holidays, and my curious self was going there. I was sitting next to them and I listened to their stories. I love to listen to the big world coming to my little place, and I was taken to France, to you don't know where. Sometimes I took even these people to my house. My mother was, But this listening was definitely something that is very, it's a core competency, active listening. And maybe because of these many, many years of coaching and facilitating, I came to one conclusion. It actually fell into me. I don't know where it was coming from. It's hanging somewhere, one of these little notes. I have it in German in my brain now. I need to translate it. So, meine allerhöchste Lebensaufgabe, my highest task in life is to, and I'm translating now, you might say it differently, accompany people to find their center so that they can make empowered decisions. That's all.
Beautiful. Could you say that again? Just for sometimes a
Yeah.
repetition helps it to go a bit deeper. Yeah.
Okay. So my highest task in life is to accompany people. So basically facilitate in some way that they can find the center, the core of their being, so that they can make empowered decisions.
Yeah. Beautiful. That needs to be written in stone somewhere.
Oh, and I'm really glowing now. I'm hot. It's like whew, it's like the it's like something has opening inside of me. This is such a big fat truth of mine. Um, it sounds so simple. It sounds so incredibly simple, and in a way it is.
So I have an idea, Bettina,
Yes.
just to bring that, which is a really powerful, overarching goal and
Mhm.
meaning of life, to bring it right into the present moment, um, and in a mindful way. Um, I know that you do this with your clients, so you have a specific container set up, right? A client coach relationship, maybe an office, a place where you do it, or Zoom. But this is a little bit more open ended. We have people out there in internet land, and they know, they've read the introduction to this podcast, and they know that we're going to take subjects that are not really very often delved into at a deeper kind of a spiritual level, and we're going to unpackage different concepts. So, taking what you just said and being in the present moment and sort of imagining those people out there, I don't know how many, hopefully millions or dozens at least, a handful,
Yeah,
but
with their ancestors, there I'm sure are millions.
there we go. Right, right, multi-level. So if you could just tune into that part that's making your cheeks warm, where that passion and truth, your truth in this moment, and just see what comes out that you could share with these people to help them come from their center or be their true, become their true self. Take a moment if you want and take a deep breath and just anything goes. Doesn't have to make sense either.
Mm.
Come from your heart, your body, even the soma.
There's actually a key that I'm also mentally dealing a lot with at the moment because I'm starting to write.
Yeah.
And the key, again, it sounds terribly simple, but it is so unusual for us, is what we also have learned in Hakomi and what John Eisman and the recreation of the self in human system, RCS method, that is an evolved method to Hakomi, says, and in mindfulness is when we can learn to listen to what wants to show up, to what wants to arise. Karl Durkheim, Graf Durkheim, he says, the space in between the spokes and the wheel. So we know we see the wheel, we see the spokes and everything, but what is really essential is what is in between. If we can learn, start practicing. Don't need to meditate or anything, and even if you do, but practice this, watching yourself, going into this observer, step a little aside from yourself and go in this non-judging observation of, okay, this is happening right now with me. there is so much more truth in it than what you're thinking and analyzing and maybe theorizing, and that must be that. And it doesn't really work this way, because our thoughts are the thoughts that we have, like a computer program, uploaded as an app. And only with these thoughts can we think. But when we actually open up and we say, okay, let these thoughts, put them aside. Something else wants to show up. What is this? This curiosity, and only naming, like I just did, that something somatically is the felt sense awareness that I have is, oh, I'm getting hot, or my cheeks are blushing, or my fingertips are getting, this is, of course, all you can explain that with biology and so on. But even if you explain it scientifically, even if you have an answer to all of this, there's something else.
Yes.
And that something else is the jewel. This is, you and I, we say, this is where the juice is. This is where something creative, it's a huge creative force, gives you a chance to just look at yourself in a different way, not the way you have seen yourself. And then there's this, oh, really? I didn't know I am an artist. Or really, this astonishment that you have when you're a kid. When you're a kid, you're in the sandpit. I don't know, you start building things and something happens. We don't do this anymore. And this is really what I mean. This, yeah, I hope I didn't speak too much on it, but this.
It was helpful to flesh out the that previous statement that was so powerful. Uh, and again, I'd like to invite you, just in this moment, with that understanding and having it fleshed out, sort of the understanding of your statement of purpose. If you could just, I do this with clients sometimes. I'll say, okay, now talk to your father or talk to the person, and I'll just get out of the way so I don't distract you. Just if you were just saying something simple, almost like a Hakomi probe, a little verbal experiment in mindfulness, but something that would touch perhaps that part of them that could just open to a truth that's already there. Maybe they've already become, they just don't know it, or something like that.
Yeah, but yeah, I understand where you want to go. And I'm just checking in with myself. And of course, I don't want to create any magic. The only thing we can stick to is what we have right now here. So I don't know how many minutes we talked already, but I can imagine that there were already things starting to move in people's minds. So my question could be to you, to those people who listen and watch, is, how are you right now? What is going on inside of you? Do you notice anything, any shift, any sensation? You don't have to notice something special. Be with you
Let's take a
for a
moment
moment.
a moment of
Silence.
silence for
Yeah,
people to
yeah, yeah.
just diddle, just notice,
Mhm.
witness or observe any
There
little
might be,
changes
yeah, there
inwardly.
might be questions. There can be anything, any sensation.
Well, the beat must go on, so enough of that.
Yeah, yeah,
But no, I'm just kidding. But
yeah,
it's true though. But what I noticed, just as soon as you said the first thing, there was just like, oh, somebody's interested in seeing me
oh,
and giving me permission to be, and it's just so rewarding. Some sadness involved with that, from all the times that many people were not interested or imposed some kind of a judgment or
mhm.
prejudice upon me. But just to have that permission to be and to be seen is really was very touching, and it helped me relax and felt a little sad, but nice sadness, sweet melancholy. So thank you. So you and I have been preparing for a little bit to work together, and which is going to be so much fun and very inspiring. to offer something mostly online for now um, around the subject of fearless aging. And I'm pretty much into that whole process. I'm going to be 77 in a week, a few days.
I'm six, I'm
Yeah,
I'm 10
so I
years younger than
qualify.
you are.
You're a young whippersnapper, I must say,
Uh-huh.
in many ways, not just chronologically, but so. But at 77, I've earned a few stripes, and I can qualify as a senior citizen. But I'm fascinated by this subject, uh, and I find that as I age, I have much more empathy with my peers
Mm-hmm.
because I experience some of what they're suffering from and dealing with. Um, so also involved with the aging, of course, are the sub themes or maybe overarching themes that we don't always mention of death and dying and that
Mm.
process. How are we relating with that?
And losing loss, losing friends, or losing health,
Of course,
losing the speed that we had before in the brain, in the body.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
loss, a lot of grief, loss,
Yeah.
one thing after the other, and
And and not to forget, not only sadness, there is an incredible power in that too.
yes. Can you speak a bit about that?
Well,
How
when we
you've
were
experienced,
exploring,
at least, yeah.
when we were exploring this, I was looking, and everybody in coaching talks about work-life balance. And then I said, so what is this when you're older, when you're not, I mean, the two of us are working, but when you're not necessarily working? And then I coined a phrase. I called it the love your life poise. So
Whoops,
instead of
love your life,
poise,
poise.
Poise.
Okay. Hmm.
So from work-life balance to love your life poise.
Good word, yeah.
Yeah, you slow down, yes, but what you do also is you really choose what you want to do, say, or what you want to be. You don't need to try yourself out anymore. You have made the choices of what you can let go and what is part of you. You have fewer pearls, but these pearls that you have are extremely precious. Starting with what you can and cannot eat, how you live your life healthily, most probably, if possible, when you're mindful about it, hopefully, which kind of people you want to be with, surround yourself. These are all choices of quality of life and poise. And the happiness that comes through these choices is because you're freer. You're not as burdened in I need to prove myself, I need to show off, I need to I need to watch what I'm saying. It's this incredible freedom of here I am. This is who I am, with
This
the
seems
edges.
to circle back to what you mentioned before around the quality of life, and it's like as we slow down necessarily, I notice I forget words sometimes, or these pregnant pauses, poignant pauses. So hopefully people are sitting on the edge of their chair saying, "Oh, what's he going to say next?" But it can be awkward too, those senior moments. But it's almost like it's not the quantity, baby, it's the quality.
Yes, yes.
So wait for it. Hopefully, what comes out will be a jewel or a pearl,
Yeah.
and it'll be worth the wait.
Mm.
Uh, and also that concept of like in esoteric astrology with Pisces and Aries, that life and death. Pisces is the last sign; it's the ending of the zodiac, returning to the ocean. The drop becomes part of the sea, and then Aries, springtime, is the new cycle, Mars. So we are the drop, the individual consciousness with our identity, our very important personality and identities and all that. And then we have that possibility, especially at death, as we approach death, am I going to allow myself and surrender to become part of the ocean? So we lose a little bit of our own specific individuality, but we gain the wisdom of the cosmos, the whole ocean. So that sweet spot between surrendering and empowerment that you're talking about in aging, I think that's where the magic is. If we can find that balance between letting go, being in touch with the grief, yes, it's natural. The earth is saying, come back to mama. the sky is saying, "Come up to Papa," maybe, and pretty soon it's going to happen for all of us. And but if we can sort of surrender into it in a mindful way, it could be so empowering as well.
While you were talking, I was not actively listening because I was in my mind, but also these things happen.
Yeah, yeah,
And
we do
I
that.
was I was in my mind just thinking of something very important for us being the ones who are running the workshop and inviting people to explore with us. We're not teachers in the sense to tell you how do you do fearless aging. It's really a 6-step program that we have worked on. But I was thinking of something else. And I mean, the two of us seem fairly healthy and lively and so on. And then there are people in our lives, like my husband, for example, who is suffering since 10 years of a neurological problem. And I see how he is getting less and less in front of my eyes. I see him every day.
Mm.
Now, this is also a confrontation we need to learn somehow to live with. We have parents, maybe we look after, or a friend or something. And that is also part of fearless aging. Maybe it's not us right now, but it is maybe somebody else we are accompanying, we are living with, or we want to help. And how are we with this? And this is not an easy task. But there are ways that you can make your life comfortable around that. In a way, you basically see yourself, right? Because we see in the other, it's always, I mean, we are mirrored in the other. And so if there is somebody who is really saying goodbye, we see goodbye.
Yeah.
And this is a very precious part also in learning how are we dealing with this. Um, is there quality in that as well? And I tell you, I would say yes, definitely. You learn humbleness. You learn that you cannot control everything. But we will explore, of course, in our course a lot around this as well.
Mhm.
I don't know how much you want to already talk about it.
We can talk for a
Sometimes,
minute.
right?
We have to wind down soon, but we have a
Yes.
little time left. But there's that wonderful quotation too that I'd like
Ah.
to share with people um, by
Mm.
Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
Mhm.
Is that the pronunciation? He's
Yep.
Hungarian. It's a very unusual name. And he's written about creativity. To what is creativity? What are the protocols? The way that our Nakad used to study authentic dialogue. What are the protocols? How can we practice it?
Mhm.
So he says the bottom line of a well lived life is not so much success, but the certainty we reach in the most private fibers of our being that our existence is linked in a meaningful way with the rest of the universe.
Yeah,
Isn't that beautiful?
it is so beautiful.
Mhm.
The bottom line of a well-lived life is not so much success, but the certainty we reach in the most private fibers of our being that our existence is linked in a meaningful way with the rest of the universe. Wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that point where that we reach continually or all at once, and it's different for everybody. As a society too, we could talk about that in another interview. How there's a parallel between
Mhm.
our own personal aging, dying, and the society, which is goes through different cycles,
Yeah.
and nature, which has its cycles of rebirth every springtime. Well, we're going to offer a little introduction, a webinar on the 7th of September for just 3.5 hours. From Eastern time, it'll be 9 till 12:30. In Europe, 3 till
6:30.
6:30. Yeah, in
Mhm.
the afternoon. So good times for North Americans and Eastern North Americans at least.
It's a Saturday.
On a Saturday, yeah. And so we'll introduce some of the themes and start working with people. And then we're planning to take a second step a few months later, which will be in January. We'll have an intensive beginning of an intensive training and perhaps an ongoing monthly group that we can maintain our connection. And would you like to say anything else about any of the details or orientation of that?
I would say the best is if we post under this YouTube, we post a blurb and a link to the content.
Mhm.
Easier to read this.
I
It's
just
my
did that before our interview. There's already the link there. It's just
aha.
the web page doesn't have all the information yet, but
Good.
the link is there. Yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, just click on that when. Oh, I have to figure out how to put links on YouTube. But anyway, hopefully it'll be clickable, or copy and paste. Worst case scenario. But I think it's going to be very, very deep and joyful, and not only participants will have a lot of good information, practical about, what do you do about finances? Have you written a will? Relationships that are changing. How do you deal with the grief and the loss, or the frustration and the anger, or the power? What do you do with all that power? So there are a lot of different areas of aging, but maybe most important of all, from my perspective at least, is that spiritually what's happening, because this is really a time of reconciling with ourself and with the Creator, perhaps, and the cosmos. And it's a time of the rubber meets the road, so there's no more fooling around. That's the way I feel. I want to make every minute count. Uh, and still goof off some of the time too, of course. But that's that's important.
Hopefully, we have to be children somehow.
Yeah. So,
So
well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to? Do you want to mention a link perhaps to your own coaching practice or anything else?
thank you for that, BettinaClarkCoaching.net. If you be so kind and just put it also in the blurb underneath.
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to maybe see and meet some of you who have listened to our conversation. We are always open to impulses. Impulses, is that the right word? Insights, questions. I'm really looking forward to doing this work with you. We have thought about it for such a long time. And it's time now, Kairos. That's the right time right now.
Kairos, Chiron, the wounded healer, the sacred warrior, the mentor. It's just flooding through into our consciousness as a human race. It's an amazing time to be alive. Most difficult and most amazing. So thank you
Thank you
once
very, very
again,
much.
Bettina,
Yeah.
and I hope that you'll come back in the future. And
Love to.
there's lots more to share. We've hardly begun.
So true.
Alrighty. And thanks again, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Very soon.